Alice Stewart Show is on the air and on your radio right now. Here's more from Alice on 96.5 The Voice.
Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show, 7:21 on a nice Wednesday morning. Joined in studio this hour with Congressman Steve Womack, who is quite the expert on many things, military, budget, appropriations, what's going on in D.C. Congressman, great to have you here.
I don't know about expert.
Yeah, expert. I think that's fit. And we've been talking about foreign policy, and recent poll numbers show that Americans disapprove of President Barack Obama's foreign policy. 57% disapprove. Do you see that as
I think
pretty?
It's higher.
You think it's higher? Well, I think it's certainly not getting any better. And we're going to be joined now with Gail Trotter. She has written a great article in Town Hall as the World Burns: Obama's Stupid Stuff, Foreign Policy, and its Disastrous Effects. Gail, great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Congressman, we've read her article and kind of concur that, as you say, Gail, the foreign policy under President Barack Obama is not going well at all. And it's, as you say, stupid stuff foreign policy is having a tremendous effect. Gail?
That's right. And in my piece, I just stick to the Middle East, but I outline the countries, what Obama has done, what he hasn't done, and how that there have been bad effects from this. But I particularly want to draw your attention to Iraq this morning. As we all remember, President Obama was fixated on removing our troops from Iraq as a strategic end unto itself. And you think about the effects of that, President Obama consciously chose to throw away whatever gains we had secured in Iraq. And especially in this past week, we're seeing the effects of that, especially the made-for-YouTube murder of journalist James Foley, and now we have a humanitarian worker, a woman who has been captured by ISIS, and they're demanding a $6 million ransom for her. We had seen weeks before that there was a cleansing of Christians out of Iraq, and the ethnic minority of the Yazidis were being persecuted, and it's too early in the morning to go into all the horrible things that ISIS has been doing in Iraq and Syria, but we see the effects of President Obama's foreign policy, particularly in Iraq, and it's so troubling.
And Congressman, you've noted yourself the problems and the mistake of putting a timeline on withdrawal.
You just don't do that in the military. You don't announce, you don't telegraph where your end game is. You keep them guessing. And in this case, we took all the guesswork out of it.
And Gail, your thoughts on, as he says, basically laying your playbook down on the table. What kind of message does that send to the other side?
Oh, not only is there a bad effect from sending that message to the other side, but we're doing it in Afghanistan, too. President Obama has set a specific time when we're going to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we're sending a message not only to our enemies in Afghanistan who know that they just have to bide their time before the U.S. is going to get out of Afghanistan, but it also sends a message to our allies in Afghanistan who have risked their lives, their families, their property, their livelihoods, everything in their lives they have risked to support us, to help us in our effort to take Afghanistan out of the 7th century dystopia that was established by the Taliban to something resembling a modern country where women can get educated without fear of violence, where they're not the types of horrible situations we saw going on before 9/11. And we're seeing the same effects in Iraq because he did accomplish his withdrawal of American troops from Iraq. And now President Obama is going back into military conflict in Iraq and probably Syria too, but from a position of weakness and ineffectiveness because we no longer have the intelligence, we no longer have enough boots on the ground in Iraq to be able to secure a victory against ISIS in Iraq and Syria without, all of the gains that we had previously being swept away.
Right.
Gail, the majority leader of the House, Kevin McCarthy,
yes,
just came through Arkansas a few days ago. Spent some time both in northwest Arkansas, where I represent, and down here in central Arkansas. He captures what you just said in his stump speech by saying this, and I want your comments on it. our friends, our allies, don't trust us, and our enemies no longer fear us.
That is a terrible position to be in, and that, unfortunately, is what we have communicated to the world. No conservative thinks that America should be the policeman to the world, but it's imperative that America acts when our national security is at stake and our strategic interests. And we decided that that was the case with Iraq. We went into Iraq. We gave many lives, much blood, much treasure in order to help establish a fledgling democracy in Iraq. And then President Obama turned tail and ran out of Iraq. And so now, exactly what Kevin McCarthy is saying, we have communicated this message not only to the terrorists of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, but we've also communicated it to the world at large, that America is going to act or not act, but we can't really tell ahead of time because President Obama does not have a coherent foreign policy. His former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, made the point that Obama's mantra of don't do stupid stuff is not an organizing principle of foreign policy. And what she was really saying is that his policy is incoherent, and we're seeing the effects of that all over the world, and particularly in the hot spot of the Middle East right now.
And my guest, Gail Trotter, is a writer and attorney in Washington, D.C., has a fantastic article at townhall.com. Also, Congressman Steve Womack. Congressman, we have about 2 minutes left. I want you to hit on this. You recently met with General David Petraeus.
Had dinner with General Petraeus. Gail, the other night, it was a handful of members, Mac Thornberry, who will be the next chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, myself, and just a few of us. He made this comment that stuck with me. He said, given all of the threats facing our country today, one that we sometimes are too quick to dismiss or maybe not alert to is the fact that we have a number of people who hold U.S. passports protected by the provisions of our United States Constitution, radicalized in this country, fighting overseas, that are going to eventually come home. And they're going to spread or try to spread that same ideological jihadist type behavior back here at home. Your thoughts on that?
I would completely agree with him. I think that's a very astute insight. And in my piece, I talk about all the things that are going on that we see going on right now. They were the same things that were going on pre-9/11 in the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. There was a woman who was taken into a soccer stadium and publicly executed in Afghanistan. Girls couldn't get education. If they left their house, they would be beaten up or they would be killed. And we see these types of things happening in Iraq and Syria now. And as you know, on the National Archives, engraved on the top is the expression, what is past is prologue. And if we don't learn from the past and understand that these toxic influences don't stay overseas, but they come back to us as well, and we don't fight them where we can effectively and forcefully, then it's going to have impact even in the homeland. So I couldn't agree more with what he observed.
Great insight. Gail Trotter, writer and attorney in Washington. Excellent piece here at townhall.com. Gail, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate you. We're going to take a break. Congressman Steve Womack will join us for the next half hour. He'll be taking calls in 15 minutes, so encourage you to stick around for that. We'll be giving out the number. This segment of the program brought to you by the Countertop Store, 9817 Maumelle Boulevard. Give them a call, 888-510-4773. We'll be back.